We've been remembering a grim anniversary for one of Saginaw's best-known landmarks, Potter Street Station. In part one, Elisse described the massive fire that happened in April of 1991 and explored the early days of the train depot. Part two picks up where she left off as the lumbering era ended.
By this point, the lumbering era is over.
We're still decades away from the fire that would tarnish Potter Street Station in '91, but in some ways, the damage done to the depot as the auto industry emerged was just as impactful.
And now we're moving into cars. And then when General Motors really grows in the early teens, then we start to get all the plants that we had until a number of years ago.
Americans traded in the clickety-clack of train wheels on steel rails for the rumble of engines and tires on paved roads.
I was employed here through a GM. That's it, but just made home here.
I talked with Alice Blakeney, a devoted 30-year member of her church, which is just a few blocks away from the old depot.
A train ride as a kid was awesome.
She moved to Saginaw from Mississippi in 1949, and for the decade that ended in 1950, Saginaw saw nearly a 160% increase in its black population.
That area, Potter Street, was a very vibrant community with a diverse of people. People travel to Chicago, wherever they wanted to go to by the train. You just enjoyed, because it was alive. We had Granville Shoe Store was one of the largest and one of the best shoe stores in Michigan.
You can see businesses lined up in these old photos, a far cry from the empty lots that exist today. But even these photographs don't quite capture the community's vibrancy as she describes it. Almost all of the city's black-owned businesses were on the east side. All but two were here in the First Ward. Rooker has studied the community's changing demographics.
When you start to have the 1950s suburban sprawl, the subdivisions start to get built, you start to get mostly whites moving to the suburban areas. When you get to the race riots in Detroit, the sit-ins here in Saginaw in 1968, that really increased white flight. Business opportunities opened up here on Potter Street, so you start to have African Americans moving in here. By and large, by the late 60s into the 70s, this is predominantly African American owned businesses up and down Potter Street.
This is the west side, this is the business district, so 675 comes right through here.
The construction of I-675 began in 1969 and the highway opened in 1971.
And it kind of cut off this part of the city like a gangrene limb.
As typical of so many cities, they picked an African American minority neighborhood to slice through. I believe it's like 19 blocks of houses that I counted that went down just to put this expressway in.
That really became a dividing line in the community, the railroad did, and then the expressway, of course, really reinforces it in a way it hadn't been before.
When GMAC pulled out, they took with it several jobs to Flint. When Word of Faith Church came in, they brought 500 seats.
Despite economic uncertainty of the time, which contributed to an uptick in crime,
Crime hit Saginaw hard in the 1980s.
Dr. Byron C. Hayes held on to his vision.
It was the GMAC credit union where they would pay their car notes, because over across the street was called the Wicks building, and General Motors was housed in there several floors as their offices.
Having already established himself in Saginaw since moving here in 1981, the senior pastor of Word of Faith International Ministries eventually moved his church to Saginaw's First Ward between 94 and 95, bringing revival in more ways than one when he repurposed an old building.
And we made classrooms over there.
One that he's now added on to. He also shared with me fond memories of Potter Street.
And there in Potter Street, it's like a diamond in the rough, was this restaurant. And it's called Mama Lily's. And we would go there and eat lunch, pork chops, grits, gravy, biscuits. It was the highlight of a working day.
Something from Richard Frober. Caskets and funeral supplies.
Over the years, the station had been retrofitted and gained a reputation for potentially being haunted.
I believe he bought and sold coffins to people.
The station continued to be used for freight until it closed in 1986.
Looking over there at the train station, we would wonder, will this rise again? Will this revive again?
Nearly 40 years after the station closed, the answer to his question could lie with another mode of transportation. Reporting in Saginaw, Elisse Ramey, WNEM TV 5.
Potter Street Station is on the National Register of Historic Places, and the surrounding area is a full historic district. If you would like to learn more about the Saginaw Depot Preservation Corporation's upcoming fundraiser, May 10th, visit WNEM.com. Tonight at 11, the third and final part of the series concludes with current efforts being made by the group to save it.